Want to know the best way to look after your Philodendron Birkin for a happy and healthy plant? Carry on watching and I'll show you what you need to do. Hey guys, today we're talking about my favourite houseplant, the Philodendron Birkin, and what you need to do to have a happy and healthy houseplant. If you like content like this, then please consider subscribing to the channel. The Philodendron Birkin is a variegated form of the philodendron plant. And there's lots of philodendrons around, but this is a particular type. It's got these really nice dark green leaves with white pinstriped variegation in it. It's becoming a really popular plant. It's relatively new, and so you should be able to find it at your local nursery. You want to look after it, you want to give it the right conditions so that it can continue to look as healthy and as happy as this plant does here. One of the most important things you can do with a Philodendron Birkin is to keep it in a bright location within your house. If you put it in a darker location, then there's a chance that the plant will want to revert back to its original form, which is a kind of standard philodendron with green leaves. So you'll essentially lose the pinstriped variegation. So if you put it in a bright spot within your house, then the plant won't look to grow the darker green leaves where it can access the chlorophyll in the plant, and then it can more easily photosynthesize. So if it has plenty of light, it doesn't want to do that, and it will keep the pinstriped variegation. So whenever a new leaf kind of comes out of the philodendron, if it's in a bright location, they kind of come out in a white form, like you can see that one there. That just means that the plant is getting enough light. Don't worry too much about it coming out white. They do eventually turn green. Plenty of these leaves have come out white and they've turned green. So yeah, just make sure you keep it in a bright spot. I'm going to keep mine on my east-facing windowsill in my kitchen. Gets a lot of bright morning sun. Sometimes gets bright direct sunlight. It doesn't seem to mind that too much though, so that's fine. But I wouldn't put it on the windowsill of a south-facing window where it gets a lot of direct sunlight. That will have potential to kind of scorch the leaves and dry out the plant. I found that this plant is not really fussy about the soil that it sits in. I have mine in a compost perlite mix, about 20% perlite, 80% compost. That's a really good mix for houseplants. It just means that the soil is really well draining, so the plant doesn't sit in excess water all the time. You don't really want your plants potted in just compost. It's a bit too heavy for the roots. So just make sure you pot it up into a nice light mix. With regards to watering, just allow the plant to dry out in between watering. So I, in the summer, water my plant once every week, and then in the winter I drop that down to once every 2 weeks. If you're underwatering your plant, then you'll notice that the leaves start to droop. They might turn a little bit crispy as well, a little bit brown. No real biggie really, as long as you catch it in time and give it a good watering, and it should perk right up. Any damaged leaves you can snip off, and new ones will replace it. If you're overwatering the plant, then that's going to damage the root system. A soggy soil is going to result in rotten roots, and you'll see that through kind of mushy leaves, and they'll turn yellow and they'll start to limp over. So it's really important to get the watering right with this plant, as with other house plants. If you're really not sure about how much water is in the plant, in the soil, then you can invest in a water meter that will tell you whether the soil is dry, moist or wet. You don't ever want your house plants to sit in wet soil. You want it to be between dry and moist. So I plug my moisture meter into the soil, and then when it is reading on the dry side, that's when I'll give it a good watering. If you do find that your plant is sitting in a wet compost and the roots are looking a bit damaged, a bit rotten, then kind of the best thing you should do is take the plant out of its pot, get rid of the excess earth around the roots, and then just pot it up into a nice, fresh, light, well draining compost perlite mix, and that should do the trick. With regards to fertilizing, I normally fertilize this plant once a month, maybe even once every 2 months. I use a all-purpose water-soluble fertilizer, Miracle Grow. If you're using something like that, you just want to make sure that you are diluting it as per the instructions on the packet. The dilution of the mix for your house plants will be different to the mix for your garden plants. So you just want to make sure you're getting that right. It's important to fertilize during the summer. It makes the leaves dark green and then it makes the white pinstripe really pop. So you'll make your plant look really healthy. I cut back on the fertilizing during the winter because it's not really growing that much, so it doesn't really need the fertilizer. So yeah, make sure you fertilize probably once every month, once every 2 months. This plant's not really fussy when it comes to humidity. It's not like a plant such as a Califea where if the humidity is not right, then it will give out crispy edges and brown leaves. Quite a fussy plant, a Califea. I've not noticed any brown edges on this plant, seems quite happy. So this sits in between 2 other houseplants on my east-facing windowsill. I think that kind of creates a sort of mini micro environments where the humidity might be a little bit increased, and it seems to enjoy that. So no real worries about keeping the plants indoors during the winter with the central heating on. It doesn't seem to mind that at all. It's a good idea to check the roots of this plant maybe once a year at least, maybe once every 6 months, just to check that the plant isn't root bound. If the plant is root bound, then the roots will be circling around the pot and it'll be running out of soil as the roots get bigger and bigger. That means that the plant is thirsty and you'll be having to water it much more frequently than normal. So if it is root bound, if there's a lot of roots in there, then just pot it up into a bigger size pot and that should solve the issue. If you let the plant get too root bound, then this will kind of inhibit the growth of the plant and it will grow much slower, stop putting out as many new leaves, and you won't get a really strong growing plant. So it's important that you check the roots once every year at least. Philodendrons are really easy to propagate. I'll be looking to propagate this guy to multiply the amount of this plant I have in my house, seeing as it's my favourite one. So subscribe to the channel if you want to be notified when that comes out. And with regards to propagation, you just want to find on the plant underneath the leaves where there's an aerial root such as that one, and then you want to make a snip underneath that, and then you can pop that up into a perlite mix, and that will start to develop roots and develop into a plant all by itself. So it should be relatively easy to propagate. Like I say, I'll have a video on that shortly, going through the whole process of how you can do that. Follow these steps, guys, and you'll have a really happy and healthy philodendron plant. I'd say the most important things that I've said is probably watering. Don't overwater or underwater your plant. Get a soil probe if you need. And lighting. Make sure it gets plenty of indirect light, otherwise you'll start to lose the variegation in the leaves, and that's what the whole plant's all about, so you don't want to lose that. If you enjoyed the video, guys, please leave a like on the video. Any questions, then leave it in the comments section, and I'll see you in the next video.